Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video update to JMA Friday. As always on a Friday, we have a detailed look at the weather for the month ahead with Japanese and CFS V2 models. Now, we did the first video today earlier on, raising the white flag on the chance of cold weather next week, or appreciably cold weather. Anyway, a few days ago, it looked like we would get into a locked-in, blocked pattern with high pressure over Greenland and the Arctic bringing the winds in from the north and the northeast. But it's all gone rather down the tubes. So if you want to know more about that, and if you want cold weather, maybe you don't, but if you do, then just scroll down the page and you'll find that video above Snow Desk. So we've had a lot of chopping and changing with the short range models over the past few days. It's been a real nightmare trying to pin it all down. I think we've more or less got there now with a pattern for next week. I'm hoping there's not going to be a last minute twist in the plot, and we've got there. But to be serious, it does mean that if it's been so uncertain in the shorter range, just a few days away, then there has to be even more of a health warning in terms of the longer range. So whilst we are going to do JMA Friday, because we always do it on a Friday, and the charts are there, so I might as well look at them, I think this week particularly, we have to have a large dose of salt about anything that you see in this video, because it's such an uncertain time anyway in the short range, that beyond that, beyond sort of 5 to 7 days, I think we do need a very large health warning with this video today. However, we're going to do JMA Friday because we always do it, so I'll get on with that for you in a second. Just to say, the Christmas shop is open, so if you've got any Christmas shop to do at Amazon between now and Christmas, just click the green button that says Gaz Christmas Shop. It will take you through to our Christmas Shop page, and then from there, the key to it all is to go through the Amazon banners. And because you've gone from Gaz Weathers to Amazon, they know when you get there that you come from Gaz Weathers. So because you've gone from Gaz Weathers to Amazon, we will get a revenue fee on anything that you are buying. And a big thank you to everybody for doing that again this season. We'll keep plugging away at that right way through to Christmas. So we're going to begin with the JMA, then we'll have a look at CFS V2, starting off with the 500 where height anomaly is broken down into weak periods from the North Pole view down. So this is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere just here. The mid-latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere are around the edges. British Isles is just there. On these charts, blue is extrapolating to low pressure and yellow, orange and red extrapolating to high pressure. Week 1, the chart you're looking at just now, dates us from the 17th today through to 24th of November. We find that we've got an area of above average height setting up around Greenland and also pushing back up into the Arctic as well. So we have got our blocking feature, it's there. It's just not in a position to deliver us anything particularly cold, because the below average heights are over northern and eastern parts of Europe, so that's where the cold air is going down to, into the east of Europe. We're under this little ridge here that actually extends down to our south, keeping us largely fine and not overly cold. Later on next week, this area below average heights, or these areas of below average heights in the Atlantic, will probably start to push in from the west and put this ridge under increasing pressure. That's how week 2 is looking, taking us from the 24th of November to the 1st of December. This one has, again, above average heights into Greenland and also extending up to the north as well. So still a sign of northern blocking there, even going into week 2, into the end of November. We've got the below average heights over to the east of Europe, below average heights also to our south, so very similar to what we've got at the moment. This area below average heights is probably doing something rather like that with the flow and the jet stream. We're close to bringing in cold air again from the north-northeast. In fact, there may be some sort of convergence here between sort of milder air coming up from the south and colder air trying to come down from the north. The convergence line might be somewhere through the British Isles. That's a bit speculative, but don't rule out the chance that we may have another go at getting things cold again as we go through into the last week of November. I'm not sure if anybody could really stand going through another merry-go-round of cold-looking charts and have it snatched away, but it's not totally impossible that we may have another go at it despite next week's failure by the time we get through to the end of November, we may well be seeing signs that the weather wants to get blocked, getting to a blocked pattern again. So don't totally rule out the chance that these cold charts might start reappearing again at any point, really, in the future. Then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, which takes us from the 1st through to the 15th of December. So running up to the middle part of December. And we've still got an area of above average heights around Iceland, also to the south of Greenland, below average heights across Scandinavia, northeast Europe, below average heights over towards the east side of America. Otherwise, not a lot else to work with. Probably doing something a bit like that, perhaps, with the flow and with the jet stream. So for us, I suspect we'd probably bring milder air around the top of that ridge. Although it is still a bit of a blocking signal, even then, even into the first couple of weeks of December, we've still got above average heights there out to our northwest. So again, at any point in December, we might have another go at turning things cold and getting into a block pattern. Remember, that's a 2-weekly anomaly, so it's always a weaker signal, because you may have something happening in week 3. For example, it might be wet and windy, and it's only in week 3, and then you get a block in week 4, for example. The 2 weeks are offsetting one another. So weeks 3 and 4 are always a little bit harder to decipher, but we do still have a bit of a blocking signal, even in weeks 3 and 4, close to Iceland. So again, don't be ruling out the chance of another stab at getting things colder at some point towards the end of November or the start of December. Mid-latitude and tropical view next in terms of temperature and precipitation anomalies with the JMA. So we come back to week 1. British Isles is just here in the top right-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it, of course. A reminder that for week 1, we've got this ridge through the UK. Also, it does extend up to extensive northern blocking that's sitting around Greenland and the Arctic. We can't see the North Pole and Greenland on this particular view, but we've already had a look at it, so we know what's going on up there, with the below average heights and the cold trough into eastern parts of Europe. So the temperature anomalies in week 1 are looking like this, but British Isles is actually coming out with a milder than average week. Notice how cold we are, how close we are, I should say, to cold conditions. So many parts of Europe are coming out with colder than average temperature anomalies in the week ahead. And also, we can't see it, but Scandinavia is also coming out with colder than average temperature anomalies as well. But for the UK and Ireland, no, we are in those milder than average temperature anomalies for the week ahead. The precipitation anomaly is also coming out a little bit wetter than average, which perhaps is a bit surprising given the height anomaly. That does look like a relatively anticyclonic signal there. So we're coming out with above average precipitation anomalies. I can only assume that what's happening there is that we start off with a very strong signal for high pressure, which we have over weekend instead of next week, and then the model is seeing that switch, a very sudden switch, from around Tuesday, Wednesday onwards to something much wetter, and that switch, because it's going to be quite a dramatic change, is going to produce enough rainfall for the week as a whole to bring us out with wetter than average precipitation anomalies. Remember, these are anomalies over weekly periods, so let's say you have 5 days that are dry, you will think that for the week you come out with a drier than average precipitation anomaly. But if you have 5 days that are dry, but then you have 2 days that are very wet, what you could end up with is a wetter than average anomaly for the week as a whole, because those 2 wet days might offset or even go beyond the 5 dry days. So with anomalies, it doesn't always tell you the entire story, and I think that may be what's going on there. We go through to week 2, which is the 24th of November through to the 1st of December. This one again, we have a blocking signal out to the northwest up there. Below average heights are in the Atlantic and also over here. So probably doing something a bit like that with the flow and with the jet stream. Temperature anomalies in week 2, so this final week of November, coming out, well, it is cooler than week 1, so we lose those very mild conditions that model is predicting in week 1. We're going close to average, hard to make it out, but England and Wales might actually be ever so slightly on the cooler than average side if you strain your eyes very, very closely. Let's say we're coming out average for the last week of November, week 2, which is a little bit down on the temperature anomaly for week 1. Precipitation anomalies are still coming out wetter than average, so quite a mild but wet end to November. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4. We haven't got a huge amount to work with, but we have got this area of above average heights close to Iceland. Below average heights in the northeast of America and also in the northeast of Europe. Might be doing something a bit like that with the flow and with jet stream as well. Let's see what the temperature anomalies are doing for weeks 3 and 4. They're coming out again very close to average, so again not a big deviation for the first 2 weeks of December, and cooler than the temperature anomaly in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies, it is turning drier there, and you'll notice that the blue colours are shifting more to our east and south, which is a little bit interesting because that implies that the jet stream may be shifting southwards. So for these first couple of weeks of December, possibly implying that we're moving the jet stream to the south, so going on to the cold side of the jet, if you like, and particularly to the north and west, close to that blocking ridge that's near Iceland, maybe turning drier as well. So, as I say, we're having a failure of cold conditions next week, but that does not rule out the chance that we're going to have another go at any point from sort of late November into December at turning things colder. The JMA might be implying that that is a possibility. Right, so that's the JMA done. Let's have a look at the CFS V2. And again, we've got the 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 17th to 23rd of November. Very, very good representation from the CFS to what we just saw from the JMA. So the above average heights is through the UK, also extending up to this big blocking features around Greenland and going up to the Arctic. That looks very, very good to be giving us cold weather because we've got a deep trough in over Scandinavia, also extends down into Eastern Europe. We're just on the periphery of turning things really cold there, but the cold air is actually going into the east and northeast of Europe, close to this ridge. We're actually seeing probably near normal temperatures, maybe even a little bit above average, especially later if this trough from the Atlantic starts to push in, as today's shorter range models are implying. We go through to week 2. Again, very good agreement between these two models, CFS and the JMA. This is the 24th of November to the 30th. The final week of the month sees a continuation of the blocking signal over Greenland. But for us, it's just not quite right to be bringing in cold conditions. We've got these below average heights coming through the UK, so it's unsettled. And we have this ridge here across southern Europe as well, which certainly isn't helping things. So we're doing something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. Again, it isn't all that far from pulling down cold air from the north and the northeast, but it's just not quite right, and actually that could be quite mild and quite unsettled there for the last week of November. Go to start of December. This is week 3, the 1st through to the 7th of November. We raise the heights across much of Central and Southern Europe. So this is now deviating from what the JMA was showing. We've got a big ridge building across Central and Southern Europe. Below average heights are over Scandinavia and in the Atlantic, and I think we're doing something like that with the flow. So we're probably pulling up an increasingly mild, maybe even quite warm source of air from the south and the southwest. We could be dragging the air up from the Azores there for the first week of December. And then, I'm afraid for anybody who wants cold weather, that continues into week 4 as well. This takes us from the 8th to the 14th of December, where we have below average heights to the north, above average heights setting up around Spain, and again, we'd be pushing up very mild southwesterly winds, rather like that. So, weeks 1 and 2, we've got the JMA and the CFS in agreement, but they are deviating as we're going through to weeks 3 and 4 into the start of December. The JMA does imply something a bit colder could happen in the start of December, whereas the CFS, that looks very, very mild, actually, for the first couple of weeks of December. Maybe, dare I say it, shades of December 2015. Temperature anomalies are coming out for the week ahead, milder than average, CFSV2, and then we go through to week 2, temperature anomalies, the last week of November, also coming out very significantly warmer than average. Week 3 is also very much on the warm and average side, that first week of December. Notice how warm it's forecast to be, in terms of the anomaly anyway, throughout the whole of Eurasia, very significantly warmer than average, and also over in America as well. Really off the scale warmth being forecast by the CFS today for many eastern, northern parts of America through the first week of December. So if you want cold weather, and we don't get it, we turn very mild, you won't be suffering alone. If CFS is right, most parts of the northern hemisphere are coming out very, very much milder than average. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 8th to 14th of December, and it stays significantly milder than average. In fact, you could say warmer than average, as it is across Eurasia, as it is through much of northern Eastern America. Canada is turning colder. For the precipitation anomaly, finally, so week 1 comes out wet and average Scotland, dry than average for England and Wales. Then week 2 turns wetter than average across all parts of the country. The Atlantic is coming back. Then we go through to week 4, week 3 I should say, first week of December. That is a weaker signal, but that does imply quite a wet week then. And week 4 also, 8th to the 14th of December, coming out quite substantially wetter than average. That's a very long way away. Normally with these charts, for weeks 3 and 4, precipitation anomalies get very weak and you don't get a signal. So to have such a strong signal there from the 8th to the 14th of December to be wetter than average, that's quite unusual. And if it does verify, that could be a very, very, very wet week indeed, perhaps that second week of December. So that's how it's looking. It's a bit of a mixed bag. We've got agreement between the two models for the first 2 weeks. So we have the blocking signal, but it's not quite right to deliver us cold weather. And actually, both models imply that the next couple of weeks see an increasing trend to unsettled weather through the remainder of November. So we probably end November quite wet and unsettled, maybe quite mild too. The first 2 weeks of December, we've got a disagreement there. The JMA looks potentially a bit colder and drier, I think, through those first 2 weeks of December. The CFS, very mild and also potentially very wet through those first 2 weeks of December. Shades, as I say, perhaps of December 2015, certainly for the first half, if the CFS-V2 is right. So we'll see how it goes. There is, of course, a huge health warning attached to anything beyond 5 to 7 days at most. We've seen so much chopping and changing. This is just a snapshot of how these models are looking today. They might look very, very different tomorrow. That's JMA Friday for this week. Do it all again next week. Tomorrow we've got the weekend broadcast coming up for you. We'll also have the CFS 6 months look ahead. We may combine the Beijing Climate Centre with that as well for the first time ever. And also tomorrow there'll be another Christmas update. I think we're up to update 8. And then on Sunday, we've got the 11th and penultimate winter update. That's going to be a bit of a solar special. And also a new feature on Sunday where we'll have a look at some very exclusive content because the long-range forecast from the ECMWF and Meteo France long-range models is now publicly available online. And I'll talk you through those charts on Sunday. Right, big weekend of updates coming up. Hope you keep checking back for more. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.